So I would like to talk to you about waiting in the city. But before I do that, I would like to set a cognitive and an emotional context by asking you to wait for me to start. Can we do that? So, please. Okay, so how do you feel? Maybe there's a feeling of patience or impatience, maybe some kind of anxiety or curiosity, these kind of things, right? Well, I've been told there are 1,000 people in here, so I imagine there are 1,000 different feelings. I will let you process these feelings as I start this talk about why they might be interesting and relevant. So my interest is in a poetic and active experience of the urban environment. The philosophy in this is pretty straightforward. I think urban life can often be hijacked by routines and habits, such that we take the city for granted. And what this means is that our experience of the city every day becomes the same. I think this is problematic because if our experience of the city today is the same as our experience of the city yesterday, then this new experience today is actually not new. It is a kind of copy. It is a kind of double, right? A kind of replay. And quite frankly, I think it becomes a waste of time. And this is really a shame because I think the city and this city has much more to offer than to waste our time. So how do we make it that our urban experience is not that way? Well, my strategy is that I imagine and then I practice urban poetic exercises. I will show you a couple of examples. So Medusa is the name of this exercise. What you would do is you would take a walk in the city and you would casually look around. And whenever you see a pair of eyes looking at you from a statue or a screen or a poster, like in this case, then you have to freeze in that moment. This is not unlike seeing a real-life Medusa. The poetic notion, I think, is that as you look at the city also looks back. So that's this one. Another one I like to sometimes do is to use the Rotterdam metro system as an instrument for fortune-telling. So the gist of it is that in Rotterdam metro lines A, B, and C, there are 18 metro carriages with unique interior graphic themes. This one is the musical one. There are other ones like ancient Egypt, tropical fishes, tulips, sunflowers, sports, and a couple of other ones. And what you would do is, on your daily commute, you would, for example, wait in the station, and you would ask the metro a question. And as the carriages come in, they often come in sequence of 3. You could interpret these graphical themes in the same way that you would interpret tarot cards. So, for example, you could imagine them as past, present, and future, and they offer an answer to your question. Okay, the main item I would like to talk about today, this is called Is That You? And I would explain this exercise in 3 steps. First, you would find a random person. The way I do this is I use a random name generator to generate a first name, and then I search up this name on Facebook. And what Facebook would do is it would find a person with this name who would also be living in your city. So you can see this person, and then you can look at his or her profile. That's step 1. Step 2, you will go to a public place. It is preferable to go to a place where you would typically wait for someone. So a train station is good, or a monument is good. In my case, when I first practiced this, I went to the Kabouter statue. And then now you have a person, and you're at a place. The third thing you would do is you would wait for that person to show up. Now, most likely, this person will not show up. But I think anyways, waiting does not have to be a means to an end, but rather it could be an end in itself. And I think the act of waiting can be inspiring and fulfilling in its own way. I will explain why. As I was doing this exercise, I noticed a couple of things. The first thing is I noticed that the way I pay attention becomes different, and it adapts to my purpose of waiting. So I would lock my attention onto the first person who enters my field of vision, and a sense of anticipation starts to build up as my brain starts to evaluate whether that is the person I wait for or not. And as the person approaches, my brain recognizes that it is not, right? So a sense of disappointment then kicks in, and then my attention shifts to the next person, and I do the same thing over again. But this cycle of anticipation and disappointment is reinforced by the feelings you had at the beginning of this presentation. So anxiety, curiosity, and these things. And actually, this is quite a moving sensation, and I would say it is even enjoyable. The other phenomena I noticed is that you start to pay more attention to people who look like the person you're waiting for. And on the other hand, you start to pay less attention to the people who are not like who you're waiting for. So some people become extra visible while others become effectively invisible. So actually, because you are in the act of waiting, your vision becomes transformed. And the way you see the city and the people in it becomes different. So this is an interesting notion. The third thing I want to talk about is that when I was waiting for my person, I also started to pay attention to a lot of other people who are also waiting to meet someone in public space. And there are many of them. And this inspired me to consider the double meaning of the word meeting. So you could arrange to meet someone in an appointment, right? This is one. But the other meaning of meeting is that you could get to know someone completely new. This is, in these situations, we will often say, it's nice to meet you, right? So in the city, this is the same. These people are waiting to meet someone in both of these ways. And when you think of the city like this and of these people, you start to imagine the urban collective as a sort of place where it is a complex network of human intersection where people are waiting for each other. And sometimes they meet for each other and sometimes they don't. There's a quick story about my father that when he was young, one time he arranged to meet a girl. It's like a date. But on his way there, he got into a traffic accident and he couldn't get there. So and he never met that girl, but for his entire life, he always wondered for how long on that day the girl waited for him. This was a time before mobile phones, so it could be minutes, it could be hours, he never knew. But what's more relevant for me is that years later, he met another girl, and this turned out to be my mother. So I don't really have a conclusion, but I have a feeling. I have a feeling. I think the city is a great place to wait for people, and it is the city is a great place to wait for people. And sometimes they show up, and sometimes they don't. But in both scenarios, there is stories and poetry to be found. And just as it is beautiful to say, it's nice to meet you, it could also be beautiful sometimes to say, it is nice to not meet you.